Today is Thursday, July 30th, 2015, and we're here today to interview Sister Margaret Weber.
That's right.
Our first question is, we would like to know about your journey of faith. What led you to the religious life?
Well, I think my parents had a lot to do with this. I think that's where we get our vocation. It's actually from our parents. And my dad was always a very religious person, and my mother too. She was a nurse. And I went to the Sisters of Mercy for grade school, grade 1 through 8. I had 3 aunts who were Sisters of St. Agnes from Fond du Lac, and I'm sure that my dad would have been happy to, if I entered that community. But I knew the Sisters of Mercy, casually as you do in grade school. We had a public high school in Midland. We did not have a Catholic high school, so I went to the public high school. It was very, very good. I think my journey of faith, began, being a Catholic family. And we had regular, we always had night prayers together, or, I always said them with my mother or dad. And we always had grace before and after our meals. And in high school, we had the sodality of our Blessed Mother, and we met every Monday, and I was quite faithful to that. We didn't have any religious education as such in high school from the parish, from St. Bridget's. But I think that one thing that really influenced my religious growth, if you want to say that, was when I was in biology class in the 9th grade and looking under a microscope at an onion skin. You see all the cells, and I do remember that. I said, how fantastic that was, that this was a cell that you could see that the onion was made of, but all of us, made of cells and going on that way. I think that was one thing that influenced me. And then another thing was the stars in the sky. I know that I used to lay out in the backyard. We had a grassy yard, not a big house, but a nice yard, and to watch the stars. And I had read also a book, it says, God, Could We Find Him? And this little booklet explained about the stars, how they are so, God is so good in making those stars. They never bump into one another, they have such regularity. In fact, this little booklet said, if you took a pocket watch, now that would not like our watches today, but a pocket watch, took it all apart, threw it up in the air, the pieces would never, ever, ever come together, no matter how many times you did that. The universe is similar to that. Stars, and now we know today so much more about the universe than we did then. But even then, that made a great impression on me. And then I had a couple friends, Florence Bartos, and Marjorie Allen, who is Sister Marjorie Allen now. She was my 9th grade Latin teacher. She taught us in the public high school before she entered. And she entered the Sisters of Mercy, and Florence Bartos entered the Sisters of Mercy. So I think that was a whole lot of the influence of my vocation.
So why Sisters of Mercy over a different order?
Well, because their headquarters were in Detroit. They they started in Grand Rapids. And I did think about the Sisters of St. Agnes, and I did think about being a missionary at Victory Knoll and those places. But to me, as a high school person, it seemed so far away. Yes. Although I did want to be a missionary to go down to South America. But I think just knowing those people too, that I chose Sisters.
What was the focus of your education?
Do you mean after high school?
Yes, college.
Oh, okay. I was I had a lot of science, general science, although I did graduate in Bachelor of Arts, I think it was. But being so interested in science, I think before I went to the college, that's the forget what you'd call that now, but that's the way that many of my studies went, was general science, biology, and all the other
Chemistry?
things. Yes.
Chemistry?
Yeah.
Geology?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So what was your role at Mercy College?
As a student, mostly.
As a student?
Yeah, as a student, because I only taught one class at Mercy College. I mean, it wasn't very much, but I know Sister Mary Kelly said, "Well, you go anyway," because I did
You have a story
influence
to
some
tell
people.
us.
Well, I'll tell you the story. Was when I was at Eastern Michigan getting my master's. We took a class, I forget what it was, but I know that we could bring in a speaker if we wanted to. That would be one of the assignments that we had. And so I asked Sister Mary Jean Saloy. She was teaching at the college, I think, at that time, and she was also supervisor of schools for the Mercy schools. So I asked her if she would come and speak. And I don't really remember what she spoke on, but she did very well. She was a very nice, very, very excellent person, and had taught some of my science classes too. So then I said, after she was leaving, I was, thanking her for this, and I know her as a friend. And I said, now, Sister Jean, if I can ever do anything for you, let me know. Well, I got a call about 6 months later and say, well, we needed a teacher here to teach a class on teaching teachers on general science in the junior high school.
Okay.
So that's what I did. I did that, and it was I enjoyed it very much, teaching it, because these were teachers who I could influence, and junior high science was always a lot of fun, because you taught, a little bit about a lot of things, and there were a lot of different experiments you could do that were very interesting, and everybody, the students just loved that. At least when I was teaching it, I really enjoyed it, and I think they did
make
too.
it interactive.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it was very much so. And I know when I was teaching science in the junior high school, you had a science table and all these different experiments that you could do, practically one every day, with them. It was, sometimes the students would bring things, and do these things, or other things. You could use ice and different things and show water, ice, air, all the different kind of things that were interesting. I thought, anyway.
How long did you teach at Mercy College?
It was just at one time. So that's what I said. I to Mary Kelly, I said, when she was asking the sisters, I said, well, I taught one class. Well, she said, now that qualifies.
She's right.
I didn't
She's
think
right.
it really. I didn't think it really did very much, but I think the teachers who I've taught, I think it did influence it.
That's a question we wanted to ask. What impact do you think you had on the students?
Yeah, I think I did,
class?
because I gave them a lot of ideas about that, and I know they were very interested in it. And I know one of the things too that I had when I had went to Eastern Michigan for my master's. One of the things was this was when NASA was trying to get to educate junior high teachers about space, and one of the things that I did when I was teaching was NASA came with their huge semi-truck with all the things about space. Now that was like in the 60s.
Wow.
And it was something new, and that was when, the government was saying, about getting children interested in space. This was at the very, very beginning. And so I hope that many of those teachers also used all these different ideas in their teaching.
I know you were there just for the one class, but do you have
Yes.
a favorite story or a fond memory?
Oh, when I read that question, or for discussion, All I could think of was about how I got there was with Sister Jean. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I suppose just the enjoyment that I had of seeing the teachers that I was teaching enjoy the class
So,
and get things from it. Yes.
what do you think your impact on the students was as a Sister of Mercy as opposed to a science teacher?
The science. Well, I think that at that time, I believe there were many sisters teaching at the college. I think well, I don't know if the majority of sisters were, but I think that they respected me as a sister, and I could bring in, like the Sisters of Mercy, our what do I want to say? I can't think of that word. Our ideals, if I want to say that, yes. And one of our ideals, is, in fact, our vow says, that we take a fourth vow of service, and that is to the sick, the poor, and we say the ignorant, but meaning ignorant, lacking in knowledge, So I think that doing that, hopefully, I encouraged them as teachers, to teach that science. Well, I could always bring in about, at that time we could bring in about God, and of course we can as Sisters of Mercy, and be acceptable, and that God is the creator of all that we have, you and me and everything, beautiful flowers, to admire the beauty that is around us that sometimes we just skip over, we don't see. Yeah, and I remember even as even like a dandelion. Now, Sister Mary Korb tells me when I was taking a class from her, a dandelion was a perfect mathematical flower.
I've heard
And
that.
she says, I don't remember teaching you that. But I always remember that. Yeah. So perhaps that's the way I would bring it in.
So how have your roles changed over time? Either in the city of Detroit, in Michigan, but especially with the Sisters of Mercy.
Well, I'll tell you, after I taught 15 years, I was principal 3 years at St. Monica's here in Detroit. Then I worked out here, in fact, at when this was Mercy Center. I worked here for a year in working with the employees and actually what we were going to be doing with this building. And you can see how it has now evolved. We had the whole building, and then after that 1 year, did a lot of planning and futurizing and all this. I was elected to the provincial council for 4 years. That was for the whole province, all the Sisters of Mercy. Then I had a sabbatical year. After the sabbatical year, I was asked to be administrator in Iowa. We had a retirement center in Iowa, so I was there for 5 years. And then after I finished that, I came here and was administrator for our retirement center here in Farmington Hills. And then after that, I always wanted to work in a hospital. In fact, my first thing of coming to the Sisters of Mercy was probably for nursing. I wanted to become a nurse, but we needed teachers then, so I was put in teaching, and I enjoyed that. But then I became chaplain at Mercy Hospital in Port Huron for 13 years, and then I retired, and I stayed on as a volunteer there for about 8 years. and then I retired out here at Farmington. So after that one space of teaching, my own teaching, I think I didn't do, quote, quote, direct teaching, but I think whatever we do as Sisters of Mercy, we are always teachers. So I had a good foundation from Mercy College there, for being a teacher, I think. I had excellent teachers, Sister Mary Lucille, Sister Mary, I can't think of her name, but she was an excellent teacher, Sister Inez, Sister Jean, many of those, Sister Lucille, who was president of one of the first presidents. I had Sister Patricia also. She was first president of the Sisters of the Mercy College, and I remember that logic class that she had. That was Sister Mary Patricia. And I think they just gave us such a good foundation besides the teaching, of being a person and of developing your own talents and your being, and being a Sister of Mercy, I think was just a wonderful, wonderful foundation that I never dreamed of having. And as I look back on my life now, I am 85, and I just finished a 4 weeks class on writing your autobiography, and this was taught by a Dominican sister. And you look back and you say, what a wonderful life that I have had, and so many privileges that I would not have had if I had not entered the sisters. And I know I have 3 sisters who are married, and they're wonderful people. They're all in heaven now, but and the married life is wonderful. But I think that God calling to me was a very special for myself, and I never would have had the development of myself if I had not become a Sister of Mercy. Although going to Mercy College, I think every woman that went there, and it was a woman's college then, had those instances and the beauty that was there.
So when Sister Mary Patricia, when you were in her class, was that when she was president?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, because we always had dual roles. You talk about multitasking now, Talk about that. I think our life has always been that.
So you were there pretty much at the start then of Mercy
Yes, in
College,
1948. Yeah, that was the start, yeah. And besides that, besides going to college, learning to become a sister, we took classes and all of that from our own sisters. Then we always had, quote, quote, charges. I can remember spending days and days and days in the dishwashing room. Not only doing the sisters' dishes, but the college students' dishes, or working in the kitchen or working in the laundry, it was all, we all had those things. So we participated a lot.
So I'm going to jump in here. I'm sorry, Sue. So is there a particular time, specifically when Mercy College was way in its infancy, that sticks out in your mind, or any experience that you had or impression that you had from the beginning?
Well, I've heard stories now about the beginning of the college that I didn't know then, actually when it started, like when Mother Carmelita, she was the provincial, and Detroit had just become a province, and Mother Carmelita and Mother Raymond came in, and they had to have the college going in September, and they were there just the year before and getting everything going, and I had seen Mother Carmelita. We had these big habits. She'd take her skirt from the habit. Of course, we had underskirts on too, and take them up and pin them behind her back. And she would get in there with the carpenters and says, "Now we need this done. This has to be finished. Oh, look it over here in the corner. That's not quite right." you know, and we need these, all these, I think we had blackboards at that time, because you'd have them, and, you know, they would work right along with the sisters, and I remember reading about how they put up a fence around it because these neighborhood young people they had always just cut through that 40 acres. And so she said, well, we can't have that with, you know, all our girls on the college and campus and the high school going up. So, you know, that's why she put this, had that fence put up around the college, the whole thing. And so that was one of the things that I do remember. And I worked down in the laundry there for a year. You know, we did the college students' sheets and pillowcases and all that, not their personal laundry, but we did that, you know, going through the big commercial laundry, and it was quite a setup, really. You think of that, yeah. We had mass every day, and Father Reckinger was there. He's gone to heaven now also. But the college girls also came to mass, and they would file in after we had our morning prayers finished, and we were in what they were called stalls. They were kneeling places along the side, and the girls would sit in the pews in the front. So that was always nice to see them, and that was I suppose, if that's what you meant by the early days.
Were you concerned going to a college that was just kicking off rather than one that had already been established?
I don't think I even thought about that. Yeah, I was just excited about, because I entered in February 2nd. I think I started college the next day because it was a Monday, and I was just excited about starting everything new. You know, I was like 17 or 18 years old, I guess. And I didn't really think about that at that time, you know, like they do now with all the different colleges and all that. Yeah.
You may have already answered this question, but maybe we can piece it together or something. How do you connect on a personal level to the mission of the Sisters of Mercy?
Oh, on a personal level. Okay. Well, now, as a retired sister, my mission is prayer and suffering. I mean, I got arthritis, my knees hurt, you know, my back hurts, and but you know, this is part of living like everybody else. And but that's daily I say a morning offering all of this, my prayers, works, suffering, you know, as a Sisters of Mercy to our sisters on what we would call on the missions that are in Grand Rapids or north up in Grayling, or the hospitals. I pray for Trinity Health all the time and how that has expanded. I pray for Mercy College, or for U of D Mercy. Still sometimes comes out Mercy College, and for the teachers, for the students, you know, that they would use the opportunities that they have, and I think that is in every Sister of Mercy, you know, thinking and prayers about that. I think over the years, even though I did most of my years were spent working with the sisters, like in retirement, a lot of that, and on the council. And you have to be a lot of, that certainly is a mission, because I'm connected with those teaching, nursing, social work. Even though I'm not directly doing that, we all share in that oneness, because we are a community. And I'm so happy to be able to have that sharing. I always wanted to be a missionary. When I as a young person. I wanted to go down to South America and work with the leopards. Lepers. We had a leper colony down there where the sisters went, and I volunteered every time, but I was never chosen. So my work is praying for them, even today. Yeah. So I think that's how I'm connected.
So how did you make your transition from teaching to retirement?
Oh, well, I think it's an ongoing thing, because I didn't retire until I was about 75, and then I did volunteer work. But we did have, the sisters offered, probably about 20 years before I retired, like a seminar on retirement. It was put on by Sister Lois Burroughs and by some of the other sisters, 4 or 5 sisters. And so I think Sisters of Mercy, as Sisters of Mercy, we have always tried to keep up with life and to make changes or help us to make changes in our life. We've always had that opportunity. In the summertime, we would have, like, I remember when I was in the 40s, we had like a week-long seminar on being middle-aged. Before retirement, like I said, about 20 years ago, we had another one on aging. And to making the transition, I was working with retired sisters for 10 years, so I was helping them, but I think the helper always gains more than what you give, what you think you give. Because you have to learn about those things yourself in order to help others. And I think, like here as a retired sister, I still get to help push wheelchairs, distribute Holy Communion, giving homilies, doing all those things, helping feed a sister, different things like that. So that's always part of our work, Yeah. Does that answer that?
Yes, it does.
Oh.
Thank you. This wasn't part of our initial interview, but given the recent passing of Sister Kenise, we were wondering if you have a favorite story or a fond memory of her.
About Kenise?
Kenise.
I can remember when we were, I don't know, 20, 25 years ago or so, when our life was changing, and we were always assigned to work like in schools or in different hospitals. We always received an assignment on August 15th. Went up to the altar and we opened up this little thing and it says, you're assigned to go to St. Michael's School, Remus, Michigan, something like that. Okay. And this was all changing, like with society and with everything in the church. And we were thinking, as Sisters of Mercy, what can we do? What can we do as Sisters of Mercy to help educate people? And it was just a general meeting, and I remember Sister Kenise raising her hand and saying, we need to help people here in Detroit, where this is our center, for many women. Now we're Sisters of Mercy are geared into helping women and children, and for women, what can we do as Sisters of Mercy? And she said, I've been thinking, and I think that there is a need for women who dropped out of high school or didn't have the opportunity for high school, to help them get at least a high school graduation. And that was the start. That was the seed that was planted for the Mercy Education Project downtown that has been going about 20 years, and I don't know how many graduates. I know we have a lot of graduates and GEDs, And those women have been successful. Many of them have gone on to college, gone on to nursing, have become different people than they were had they not been able to get a GED at Mercy High School. And I think that, not at Mercy High School, I mean at Mercy Education Project. And to me, as I remember Sister Kanice, she was the instigator of that. And also, recently, in the last 10 years or so, I know when the Catholic high schools stopped, when they were, many of them, what do I want to say,
They closed
concluded.
them?
They closed,
They
yeah.
just closed
They
them.
were closed. That she said, we should have some high school education, Catholic high school education. And I think that is how the Cristo Rey came about. That she was very much influenced by that and doing a lot of the legwork and all the telephone calls and the interviews and all of those things that she had done in getting that Cristo Rey High School, and that set such an example, as I understand it, that all of those, almost 100% of the graduates do go on to college, from Cristo Rey
Yeah.
High School. So those are the two instances. And I know that she was very influential in this the shutting off of water in people's homes in Detroit. Yeah. So that's what I remember of her. And she was always a good friend and always a lovely person. And I never had a chance of living with her, but certainly, we get together in the summertime. We always did, or had conferences or retreats or different things. But those are the two things I remember about her.
Is there anything we haven't discussed that you would like to tell us or expand upon? What have we missed?
I probably have talked a lot more than I should have.
That's what this is about.
It's just been wonderful to be a Sister of Mercy. I have enjoyed my life immensely. I can't say that I regret anything, never. And I still look back, like I said, at education and encouragement and all of those things that we got way back at Mercy College, and continuing, if you want to say continuing education or growth or whatever that would be. So I just said it and say it. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful time.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity of talking.
Yes.